You know what? Let's go look at the conservatives for 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 our climate policy while we game, okay? While we game.
Well, we're finally number one. No, Toronto doesn't have the most beautiful condos. It doesn't have the freest, fastest moving traffic. It has the worst air quality of anywhere in the world the last few days. These wildfires shaking up Canada's largest city and maybe our politics too. To break it all down, I'm joined by Sean Spear, co-founder and editor-at-large at The Hub, here in studio for today's Hub Hit. Hey, Sean.
Hey, Roger.
So let's talk about this. You are a Thunder Bay native, so your family, your parents back home in Thunder Bay are really dealing with the brunt of this. In fact, have been dealing with it for weeks. It's suddenly a national story, though, Sean, right now, because guess what? It's happening in Toronto. Tell us about Thunder Bay.
I mean,
what's going on
it
there?
is every year,
And
even
what's
in
the
Alberta.
reaction
So.
maybe there to the fact that this suddenly does become a story because people in Toronto are coughing and wheezing and rubbing their eyes?
mean,
Yeah,
what
I see
a-
where you're going with this. I wasn't sure with that.
Bro, I think that's kind of retarded, right? We know every year before they even happen that there's going to be forest fires. We talk about it every year, and like this idea that it's only important when it happens in Toronto. Internationally, yeah, and internationally it's only important when it's Toronto or the US, but like let's not fucking pretend that nobody gives a shit before, right? A few years back, we had like some big fires in Alberta. Everyone gave a shit. Like when we have the fires that are starting sometime in Manitoba, for some reason it seems that it was worse for the previous year over there. It started there. Well, we were talking about it. Quebec is a little bit more lucky, but there's some part of it that is burning down sometime. There's not as much people there, so of course we hear less about it, but like in Quebec we're going to say like, oh, Quebec 2 is burning, even though it doesn't affect that much people. But yeah, like that's just a narrative that isn't true.
That introduction, how you intended to speak. Yeah, it's really remarkable. Growing up in northwestern Ontario, one grows accustomed to forest fires in the summer. Everyone knows someone who spent a summer earning money fighting forest fires, for instance. But I at age 44, I have to think this is amongst the closest it's ever been to my parents. The fire in Nipigon, which is about an hour away, is about 700 hectares or so. So the water quality, the air quality issues that people are confronting here in Toronto, of course, are even more marked in northwestern Ontario, and it's serious. People are losing property, people are losing cottages. Entire First Nations communities have had to be evacuated to Thunder Bay, which serves as a kind of metropole for the region. So this is an issue that is touching everyone in northern Ontario. And if anything, I suspect they're glad that there is now finally a bit of national attention to what they've been kind of suffering through mostly alone.
So
There
let's
has
talk
been,
about the
but okay.
politics of this. Because it has hit Southern Ontario so hard, I'm certainly hearing a lot. It's what everybody's talking about for the last 36 hours. Because again, it's like a snowstorm. If it's happening in Toronto, it must be happening everywhere. But in all seriousness, Sean, there's going to have to be some political knock-on effect to this. This is the second summer in a row now in Southern Ontario that we're coping with these significant air events, wide-scale air pollution due to these wildfires. Very hard, though, for governments to address this in any meaningful way. You've sat in the Prime Minister's office. Mark Carney so far has been pretty quiet.
Yes.
The last few days. He's coming off some big announcements on pipelines and expanding
Yes.
the potential capacity for the oil sands. So that kind of stands in sharp juxtaposition, pro hydrocarbons, pro burn baby burn. I say that jokingly. But on the other hand, we can get into it a little bit, but there's probably a climate change clue in what's happening here and what we're experiencing with the wildfires.
Yeah, there's so many different ways to take this conversation, Roger, and we can take it as long as you want because I do think it is multi-layered. I mean, let's address the climate change question. I think some of our listeners and viewers will say, attributing these forest fires to climate change is overstated, that there's often more kind of prosaic explanations around either forest management or even arson or whatever, and we'll wait to find out exactly what's going on. But I will say, even if this isn't attributed to climate change, the recent past tells us that it's precisely these types of events that raise the salience of the climate change issue. I remember back in 2007, 2008, soon after the Harper government had been elected with a pretty limited climate agenda, you recall that the Prime Minister put John Baird into the environment role, arguably his best minister when it came to communications, precisely because we had just come out of an uncharacteristically warm winter, and even people like my dad in Thunder Bay who aren't thinking deeply about climate change was thinking something like a bit off here. And so I don't think it's implausible, setting aside what's really going on here, that the government is going to face increasing pressure on the climate file, particularly from its left flank, and conservative governments and conservative parties are going to face questions about climate change. I'll turn it back to you in a second, but the only other piece of the puzzle here that I think is really important to emphasize for our listeners and viewers is one we talk a lot about, and that is state capacity. You mentioned that the federal government has been mostly on the outside looking in so far. In fact, there's some evidence that the Ontario government hasn't yet requested federal support.
Oh, really?
But I don't have a lot of confidence, I don't know if you do, that the Ontario government is capable of managing something at this scale. If a place like Thunder Bay, over 100,000 people plus even more in the moment because different communities in the region have been evacuated there, had to be evacuated, that would be a major undertaking. And this is a kind of hollowed out government at Queen's Park.
Look, the big thing here, when we're saying that the government doesn't seem to talk about it or to do much about it, like, to me, the simplest way to explain that and to make sense of that is because we know that it's going to get worse. So when something starts at a 2 and you know that it's going to become a 9, you don't want to come out and to just be, okay, there's an issue and gesture at it, and then it's worsening. It's just going to make you look so freaking bad whenever you go back and you say, okay, we're doing this, because then the opposition will be able to say, well, you didn't take the right step whenever you addressed it the first time. So it's probably a better position to be in, to be accused of ignoring it, even though you're doing everything that you normally do and you're not really ignoring it. It's probably better that you have that accusation than truly just gesturing at it and then getting fucked by your opposition. So here, I think that both the provincial government, so Ontario in their case, and the federal, they're just waiting on it. They're just waiting that it gets worse enough where they can make a big show of force. But right now, they're just managing the crisis as best they can.
So I think it raises the salience of climate change, and it probably ultimately, over the long run, raises the salience with what is our government's kind of basic capacity to deal with these types of emergencies? Yeah,
some reports that the Ford government has cut consistently the firefighting budget in Ontario. Good. And let's though touch on the climate change issue, because I think that's what the politics is going to pivot around. If we go to this graph,
there are some things that you should just never cut the budget of, like the people that take your taxes, so the CRA, or when we're talking about U.S. politics, it would be the revenue agency, the whatever the fuck. We don't care. We don't have Americans right now. We're Canadian only. But yeah, there's some places in life that you should never cut. Those who make your money, never cut them, because putting money in them makes more money than the money you cut out of them. And firefighters, the thing that burns and out of control fires cause more damage to your economy than anything else. So why would you cut something that is it's not revenue generating, that's for sure, but it's like insurance, right? You're not going to cut your insurance on your house just because you want to cut shit, right? It's not the thing that you should cut on, because if shit hits the fan, you not having insurance, that will be a big issue.
Our staff have prepared. It looks at average areas burned in square kilometers from the 1970s. This is on a decade by decade basis. And look, from 2020 to 2024.
Well, they might just have changed how they manage fires.
A massive spike, double almost the first decade of this century. Now, again, that's one spike. If you go back and you look from the 1980s through to 2019, you could say that data relatively has some continuity at around 25 to 30,000 square kilometers burned on an annual basis across Canada. On the climate issue, though, the Carney government has, I don't know, Sean, tried to walk and chew gum at the same time. They've lost Stephen Guilbeault, who was the most vocal, high-profile climate advocate, but they're also moving ahead on pipelines. They're encouraging the expansion of the oil sands in contradistinction to the Trudeau government beforehand. Yes. Do you think this event, and just generally, is creating, there's some vulnerability to the Prime Minister's flank on the environment? And if you want to think back over the last 14 months, where is the environmental agenda for this Liberal government, which seems odd considering the centrality of it to the Trudeau government and, frankly, the centrality of it to a lot of Liberal voters?
Yeah, to say nothing of Mark Carney's own political persona up until 14 months ago.
Yeah,
I think
we're
you're right.
just not in that moment.
Oftentimes, Roger, in kind of elite circles, climate gets discussed in terms of net zero and all these sorts of things. And in my experience, it's precisely these type of acute events that are what raise the salience with climate for ordinary people. If you're a mom or a dad in the GTA and you're looking around and saying, this just doesn't seem right to me. Mm-hmm. Now, as I say, we'll get to the bottom of what's going on here. No doubt some of it has to do with forest management, et cetera. But I think even if you're a kind of doubter of climate change, you have to be prepared to live with the fact that events like these tend to raise the salience of climate policy and put an onus on policymakers to communicate what exactly that they would do and how they think about the trade-offs. As for the Liberals, I think it's a good point. Up until now, I think if we were being honest about it, the only climate policies we've seen from the government are reversing climate policies.
Yeah.
That's true.
The Prime Minister has already walked away from the 2035 targets. One can agree or disagree about whether that's a good outcome. But I will say, if Pierre Poilievre was carrying out the policy agenda of Mark Carney right now, I assure you we'd be hearing a lot more about it from the media, climate activists, and others. And in that sense, I think you're right to connect the dots here, that an event like this may, if nothing else, shame those voices to start to call out the Carney government, and possibly, as you say, from the inside, from those caucus members themselves who came to politics partly motivated by these issues.
Yeah. It's not at this scale yet, but I think of 3 Mile Island. I think of the Japan Fukushima Daiichi reactor explosion after their set of tsunamis over a decade and a half ago. Those fundamentally changed, at least for a while, views about nuclear power in both Japan and the United States. We're not there yet, but I do think these events matter. And I agree. I think right now you can set aside debates about anthropogenic climate change, its effects. I think it's real. Is it responsible for these fires and the smoke that we're experiencing the last few days? That I don't think is an assessment, frankly, that anyone has the granularity of data to make. But
well, no, I think we can safely say that it's worsening these things. Like we're seeing more of these forest fires. Everyone agrees that they're going up. Like if it's not from climate change, then like I'm sorry, I'm not going to be triggered at the idea that people would blame climate change on it. But here, again, we're just not in a moment for this. So people just don't give a shit about it right now. And like if climate change is a big issue for you, I'm sorry, but everyone know. Even Stephen Guilbeault, right? Stephen Guilbeault is that big. He's essentially the face of the Liberals' green policy. Like even he, it's clear in the way that he discusses things, in the way that he does things, that he completely concedes that the average Canadian does not give a shit. Now, is that like sad? Is that something that we don't like? I get it, but at the end of the day, if the people will boot you out of power for doing your climate policy, it's not a good climate policy. So that's something that we must keep in mind for whatever policy we're engineering or we're doing. So here the Liberal actually like managing to do a policy that they can still like do green things. We've talked about the AC, well, it's not really AC, the heat pump that they're helping install for the province and all that. Like these things do help the climate. The core reason why we would blame a Pierre Poilievre, but we don't blame a Liberal, is because when we look at a Liberal, we know that he's not doing this because he's horny to fuck over the climate. He's doing this because he's forced by the electorate. And we see that through everything that Mark Carney does. So, I don't know, I'm just not stressed about it, and we'll see where it goes, of course. There could be, like, there's a standard where I would say, okay, that's too much, we're going too far. But we have not reached that standard. Like, we're not there yet.
I just wondered, and I'll give you the last word here. If you're the Prime Minister and your key ridings and voting constituencies in Toronto, in Southern Ontario, are now experiencing 2 summers because these fires in and around Thunder Bay and north of there aren't going away.
Yes.
This is not just going to be 2 days, Sean. What I've seen from some analysis is that Central Canada could look a lot more like Western Canada did last year, with more intermittent but continuing wildfire, air pollution heavy days. I don't know. I think he's going to have to pivot somehow from pipelines to expanding oil sands capacity to something meaningful on climate. So final question to you, where does he go? What does he do? Because he's reduced our targets. He's effectively backed off our greenhouse gas emissions. He's bringing a pipeline to Tidewater. He's lowered Alberta's price per ton on carbon, and in other words, there's been a lot of walking back. Where would he walk forward?
Well, he walked forward on that, right? Let's not lie. So before, Alberta was like not implementing, not doing anything with carbon, and like there was some Trudeau like plan to make sure that there was some big hike, big carbon tax there for the producers, but like they were not following it, and they were not going to follow it. So what are we talking here? Like I just don't know. People seems to have a big issue understanding the difference between something that is like already applied and going on and something that was planned to be done. Like those two things are different. They're just like, you cannot, something that is planned to be done hasn't been achieved. You cannot say that it's a loss. But maybe people think that there was a way to get the Trudeau like the Trudeau carbon tax applied and all of that. But yeah, I think it is delusional.
It's a great question. He'll be able to point alongside the Ontario government to some recent announcements around nuclear energy. He'll hold up, no doubt, projects like the Pathways one that we've raised some doubts about. But I think that your basic premise is right. That as long as people, normies, not climate experts, but normies, are walking around the GTA thinking this isn't how I remember summer. It will place real pressure on the Prime Minister and the Premier and others, I think, to respond. And I just say, as we wrap up,
that's a fair assessment.
As important as those issues are, I think the Ford government is going to face increasing pressure itself to communicate its plan to get these fires out of control, to give people in Northwestern Ontario and Northern Ontario more broadly kind of assurances that their property and their person are safe. For those who are watching these fires on television, I can tell you, talking to family back home, this is real, and we're thinking of everyone there.
Absolutely. Sean Spear, thanks for coming in for this Hub Hit.
Yeah, great talking to you.
If you're enjoying our Hub Hits, head over to our YouTube channel, 75,000 subscribers and counting. Please hit that subscribe button and join that august group. And if you're over on our podcast channel,
Like it's true. If you like it will raise the stakes of it. Let's hear them talk.
somebody had a
Poilievre.
not
That's going
so
to be
great
fun.
week this week. Well, Mark
you
Carney,
think?
Danielle Smith, and the other big superstars of Canadian politics were hammering out deals, announcing big numbers. The leader of the official opposition, Pierre
shit.
Poilievre, seems to have disappeared from the public debate. What's happening with the opposition leader this summer? What are his political prospects going into the autumn and the resumption of Parliament? To break it all down for today's roundtable, I'm joined by Sean Spear, my co-founder and editor at large. Hey, Sean.
Hey, Roger. Always great to connect.
Yeah.
Yeah, fuck.
Well, let's spend a little time talking about Pierre Poilievre. He plays an important role as leader of the official opposition. He heads up, Canada's second, arguably historic party, the Conservative Party of Canada. And I think it's fair to say, Sean, he did not have a good week this week in terms of the Prime Minister lapping him a couple times on some big announcements related to the MOU and pipeline. And maybe more importantly, Sean, just some growing divisions within the Conservative Party that are kind of breaking out here, there, and everywhere. What do you make so far of the summer that Pierre Poilievre has had?
I wonder.
Yeah, I think you're right to shine a light on these questions. This week, our Alberta bureau chief, Felice Chen, wrote a really thoughtful article that basically set out that this week amounted to Danielle Smith's best political week. If you think about securing the pipeline announcement with the Prime Minister, announcing a major new private investment in data centers as the week came to an end, and you juxtapose that with Pierre Poilievre's week. Poilievre was mostly silent on the pipeline. It creates some difficulties for him. I note that there were dozens of Liberal
God.
MPs descending on Calgary this week to participate in the stampede, far more than there has been in the past, and that reflects something that you and I have picked up, Roger, in our own travels through Alberta over the past year or so. That Mark Carney has, at least for now, solved for a lot of the animus that one found in the province towards Prime Minister Trudeau and his government. There seems to be a lot of goodwill, particularly in
I don't know. First of all, I don't know how to square his fucking accent. Okay, government. He says. Anyway, I don't know. Maybe it's just me that's narrow in how to pronounce things. But like Pierre Poilievre, the big issue is that he's not a serious person, and we are in a serious time, right? So when people are having some big issues in their life, they don't want the guy that is yelling, pointing fingers, and saying a bunch of shit. Like, Americans seems to pretend that this is what they want. They don't. It's because they don't really have an issue, right? So if they had real issues, they would absolutely go for the serious person, but they don't, so they go for the clown. And the clown right now is Pierre Poilievre, so no one is going to vote for that clown because we have issues. So here, how do we solve that? The only way to solve that is to replace the clown that is right now the leader of the opposition. The problem is, let's do that calculus from the point of view of a conservative. So if you're a conservative, your party is essentially run by that clown. You're going to lose all of your cohesion. You're going to go into a conservative civil war if you want to remove him. And it will be for what? Because essentially what you're asking your MPs to do, your representative to do right now, is to tarnish the reputation of the Liberal. And for that, I mean, Pierre Poilievre does do the trick, right? Pierre Poilievre is really good at tarnishing the Liberals. Right now, he might not look at it, but leave him a little bit more time. He's going to be able to, of course, get some hits are going to work, okay? He's going to connect. He's going to just hit the ball, and he's going to end up tarnishing the Liberals again, which is fucking sad. But in the meanwhile, there's no real advantage for the Conservative to go into that civil war, to waste their time. So, in my view, they're just going to keep it, tarnish the reputation, and if they're strategically smart, they're going to then switch him at the last moment. So they're going to wait like a few months before the election and pushing him out. Where I think they're going to do a mistake is they're not going to do that end part. They're not going to push him out. If they do that, well, good luck on them. They fucked up, and Mark Carney will win another election. What do you want me to say? But yeah, that's pretty much the idea right now. So if they're smart, they're gonna push him out somewhere in the future. But right now, he's doing his job, which sadly is lying about the prime minister.
Business circles towards the prime minister, and that represents a kind of challenge to Pierre Poilievre. And then, of course, we have one of his MPs, Richard Martel, accepting a Senate appointment. Now, Roger, so far this has received less attention than some of the high-profile floor crossings of earlier in the year. But for all intents and purposes, it has the same effect. It causes the Conservatives to lose a seat in Parliament. It exposes them to a future by-election, which they are likely to lose. And perhaps most importantly, it reflects a kind of revealed preference, another proof point that those closest to Poilievre, his own caucus members, are starting to doubt his leadership and looking for off-ramps. So when you add...
People say that, but I don't think it's true. Because here's the thing. A caucus is made up of people that are actually elected. The people that are not elected, they don't have a voice, right? You can maybe talk about the higher management of your party. Those people may have a voice. But apart from that, your caucus is made out of the people that were elected and that are still in the chamber. So if you go to the Senate, you're essentially removing that voice. So he's not going to pressure anymore, because that person, if he switched to the Senate, for sure he's not on the Pierre Poilievre side, right? He's not going to be the guy that goes to bat for Pierre Poilievre. So you're removing what Mark Carney is doing. He's of course removing seats and making his majority bigger, but also he's making sure that the opposition that would organically be created inside of the Conservative be removed, because I truly don't think that the Conservative give a shit if they lose seats, because Pierre Poilievre is the leader of the opposition. That's what he is right now. Removing seats doesn't change that fact, and I don't think that he feels, and that his base feels, that it's an issue. So yeah, like, why would it be, like, people often say, okay, if Mark Carney pushed this too far, if he removes too many people from the Conservative, if he makes Poilievre look weak enough, like, how can Poilievre look weaker than he is now? There's no way. Everything has already been done. He's managed to give a majority to another party through floor crossing. This has never happened in Canadian history. Like, I don't know what to say. You cannot be weaker than that. So, one seat for someone that goes to the Senate, I'm sorry, nobody truly gives a shit about this. I don't think it's a real issue.
Add all that up, Carney kind of taking leadership on the energy file, what had long been a Conservative advantage, Poilievre looking kind of weak on that subject, the Senate appointment, etc. I think it's fair to say that as we enter the month of July, Poilievre's leadership is facing a bigger test than it has in a long time.
Yeah. Well, let's break some of those.
I feel everyone is saying that from the outside,
down.
but
and let's
is
start
the
with the
inside
pipeline,
really
because it does
saying
put
that?
the Conservative Party and the Conservative leader in a difficult position. There was nothing, in a sense, more favorable to Pierre Poilievre in terms of pushing up his national numbers in the Justin Trudeau era than the former Prime Minister's seeming indifference, minus, obviously, the Trans Mountain Pipeline, but general indifference to the plight of resource extraction in Alberta and getting that to markets in a timely way with a regulatory regime, not just pipelines, that would support maximizing the so-called Alberta advantage.
Yes.
I don't know, Sean, is is the leader of the Conservative Party simply flummoxed here? It's hard to think in the context of, you know, the last few days of announcements around this MOU. You've mentioned it. Our intrepid correspondent Felice Chin, Hub Bureau Chief, has been at all the Calgary Stampede events, reporting back to us that there's a real buzz there around the Prime Minister, around the pipeline, around these Liberal MPs. This has got to hurt. I mean, this is Calgary. This is the stomping ground, so to speak, of this party, of this leader, and you know, the call is coming from inside the House.
Yeah, well said. And this issue has always been challenging for Poilievre, really since the original MOU was signed, because in the previous scenario, he was in lockstep with Premier Daniel Smith, arguably the other most popular Conservative in the country, litigating a case against Ottawa. In recent weeks, he's found himself offside Premier Smith, who has made the case that this MOU is in the interest of Alberta and that it was going to result in a pipeline, and now she has, at least for now, more evidence to support her case. And so in that sense, what I've noted is that in recent days, Poilievre has essentially disappeared. He's completely ceded this issue, which of course advantages Carney. So when you kind of add all this up, Roger, you just get the sense there is more unrest, more uncertainty, growing questions about Poilievre's kind of ability to get this party across the line. And I go back to Martel's Senate appointment. We know that the Liberals were circling Conservative MPs, particularly from the province of Quebec, really since the beginning of the year. The Conservatives around Poilievre had worked hard to diminish or stop those overtures. And here, just as Parliament has broken for the summer, you have a Quebec MP not crossing the floor, but joining the Senate. Poilievre, I suspect, Rudyard, is probably pretty happy he's not having to face his caucus next week, because I suspect it would be an uncomfortable conversation.
Yeah, I'm going to get to this new way to floor cross into the Senate, not into the Liberal caucus. I mean, it is ingenious. But before we do, Sean, I mean, in fairness to Poilievre, I mean, what could be his response to the Carney government? I mean, Carney has kind of mowed his grass on the carbon tax, on the capital gains tax.
He disarmed him. That's true.
Pipelines. I mean, what is left of the Conservative
defense spending
mandate? You know, he's moved on tougher legislation related to the crime and justice agenda. The Canada-U.S. relationship is just, you know, dominated by the Prime Minister, period. It's regardless of whether it's Mark Carney or anybody else, that job inherently owns the Canada-U.S. relationship. So, you know, we can talk a lot about Pierre Poilievre, but if someone else was wearing the belt buckle for the Conservative Party of Canada at this moment at the Calgary Stampede, what's the policy set? Where's the dig in? Where's the the vector to target some political wins?
Well,
it's such a good.
You need to play the long run. That's why I say removing Poilievre right now doesn't necessarily make sense. So right now, the time is for a serious guy, but tarnishing the Liberals, like, as much as I hate it, it is the strategic thing to do. So again, if I were a Conservative, keep Poilievre in there. Keep him until you know that there's going to be an election fairly soon, and then just swap in for a serious candidate, like someone that is essentially Mark Carney of the Conservatives. So the idea would be that Mark Carney would have fucked up something since then that you could point to, and you could say, look, this is not a government that knows how to govern. We're going to be able to do that. But I truly don't think that this person, like this serious person, doesn't exist in the Conservatives right now. So the Conservatives always have a brain drain issue where if you are someone that wants to make policy, if you are a smart person, you are not going to be able to find your match in the Conservatives. You're going to look around, see a bunch of essentially gas-guzzling retard that are going to just spew whatever propaganda they get from the U.S. and like there's no intellectuals in there, right? When you look at the liberals, at least behind closed door, they have those discussions. They go and they say to themselves, okay, what's the optimal thing here for trade? What's the optimal thing here for taxes, for inflation, for all? Like, these discussions do happen at the liberal side of things. So, like, if they don't have that structure, they kind of Trumpified their party. You cannot expect a serious person to come out of that environment. You're not going to get somebody good with shit, right? You're gonna need to have some honey. So that's the core of it. But hey, we'll see.
A good point, Roger, and it's worth emphasizing that if you think about politics is about differentiation, and you want to differentiate on issues where you can make the case that a critical mass of Canadians are on your side. And under the previous Trudeau-led Liberal government, the Conservatives had several of those issues: inflation, affordability, a kind of general sense of economic stagnation, and a lack of attention to kind of bread and butter economic issues on the part of the Trudeau government, which was increasingly focused on the kind of excesses of climate change and identity politics and so on. And here you have Mark Carney, who's matched the Conservatives on taxes. I mean, that was amongst the first things he did as Prime Minister. He's now matched the Conservatives, or even gone further, on defense spending. He's gone about securing a pipeline deal with, as I say, arguably the most popular Conservative politician in the country, Daniel Smith. And so the Conservatives now are searching for issues of differentiation. The problem is a lot of the ones that are left over are ones that are unpopular, which is to say they can differentiate for differentiation's sake, but it risks.
Are we going to talk about abortion next?
So I think that's exactly right. I mean, the only opportunity here for the Conservatives is to kind of manufacture issues, is to create those differentiations. And it seems to me that the strongest case, but one that is not going to manifest itself in the short term, is just the gap between kind of ambition and rhetoric on one side and results on the other. That the Carney government is saying and doing a lot, and at some point it's going to prompt the question, what have we got for all of this spending, all of this action?
That would be the vector.
That's going to require
it's not true,
Conservative
but
caucus members and Conservative partisans
would be the vector.
That this isn't going to change overnight.
Yeah. So let's move to this latest, again, ingenious way to engineer a floor crossing instead of, asking a member to, frankly, engage in a somewhat humiliating exercise. Of floor crossings are, I think, inherently humiliating because it really shows that you have no political principles except except opportunism for yourself, and maybe you can make an argument for your constituency. But this time, Sean, into the Senate,
it shows that you have principle. Like that's kind of retarded, right? That only works if, like, this way of thinking about things only works if truly Poilievre was an effective leader. And because he is not an effective leader, everyone can see that it's reasonable for someone to cross the floor because of how, like, unable he is, not able to affect his policy, affect his vision, Poilievre is. So, yeah, that was badly phrased. Floor crossing is humiliating if you do it for no reason. When there's an obvious reason that your voters can see, then it's not an humiliating thing. It is a hard thing because you're switching a lot of things into your brain, right? Because these people, to be able to follow Pierre Poilievre into the election, they have had to say to themselves, okay, I'm going to lie in order to get elected. I don't believe in like half of what this guy says, and I don't give a fuck because this small issue is important enough that I'm going to push through with it. But this person has to rewrite their brain in order to go there. That's the hard part. The hard part is not, like, if you have principles, you don't, that's not an issue. Anyway.
A nice, $250,000 salary, some staff, the ability to put your feet up on a Senate desk and, shoot the breeze about, about legislation out of the House and really have no consequence in terms of what you would.
I mean, we need to start making the making that point, but not for the Senate, for the leader of the opposition. Isn't it a comfy life to have literally a house paid for you, like a big fucking house, have people making you meals, you're getting driven around all the time, everything is paid, you have like access to the biggest level of essentially everything in society, healthcare and all of that, because you're leader of the opposition. Isn't that like the big thing that we should talk about? Like the Senate guys, they're working on the most boring legislation, reading a bunch of shit all the time. Like that sounds boring as shit, okay? That sounds like a hard job to do, at least for someone with ADHD, okay? So, like, I don't know. I don't know. To me, I would make the argument for Poilievre being the guy taking advantage here.
You and your fellow senators decide a debate. I mean, it is one of Canada's great state governmental perks. So, Sean, I mean, is this an innovation that we can expect more of in the future? Has anybody done this? I mean, it strikes me as like wildly creative and wildly effective. Pierre's down another member. Carney's up one.
Yep.
Effectively, his majority is in a way stronger as a result. Again, it's ingenious.
It is ingenious. It speaks to something we've talked a lot about in the past, which is the kind of shrewdness of Mark Carney and the people around him. This is someone who, notwithstanding the image of being a kind of technocratic bean counter, is prepared to put his elbows up, if I can use that tortured metaphor. What makes it interesting and why I think you're right, Roger, to signal to the audience that this may not be the last time we see this is Martel's riding is not a safe one. He won with a small margin in the last election. Given
we're
where
going to
the
win
parties
this.
find themselves today, it's highly likely he would lose that seat in a subsequent election.
Yeah.
There are dozens and dozens of other Conservative MPs who find themselves in the same boat, who are feeling self-conscious and insecure. They know that if this continues, they're likely to lose. Crossing the floor may be a step too far because of kind of social relations, because of kind of longstanding institutional ties to the party or whatever. So they're kind of stuck for now in this awful position of just like waiting to be judged by voters. And if if Mark Carney went to some of them and said, "You don't have to cross the floor, but I found a way for you to avoid that fate," I think that's a proposition that could appeal to a lot of Conservative MPs.
Yeah. So, Sean, just to wrap up the first complimentary half of today's roundtable, what do you think happens going forward? I mean, this is such a...
And look, like, I don't know why I'm helping the Conservatives here. There was a time where the Liberals were in that situation. When Justin Trudeau was in the seat, everyone hated him. I would say for bad reasons, but everyone hated him still. So, like, it was a rough time. Everyone thought that we were all going to die and that we were going to be ruled by fascist Poilievre. It ended up being a resounding no. We ended up saving that one big time. So, like, the Conservatives can stress all they want, but at the end of the day, shit ends up fixing itself if you're not a retard, if you have some kind of a plan. I don't think that the Conservative have their Mark Carney. I don't think that they have their equivalent. But look, if you're a Conservative and you truly believe that your party is smart, you're going to be able to fix that without much of an issue once the time comes. But right now, for the Liberals, you just need to make sure that as little as the it's that Poilievre is going to try to do connects. Because if more connects, and if you destroy the credibility of Carney on the greater electorate, we're going to be fucked pretty fast.
Such a miserable job right now. I'd be hard-pressed to see someone else wanting it. So in effect, doesn't Pierre Poilievre have the advantage here, that he is effectively uncontested in caucus. It's hard to imagine anybody in caucus,
Yep.
frankly, with all of his
there's
political skills.
And there's no replacement, right? In the Liberal Party, like, no matter what you want to say about it, when it was Justin Trudeau, there was other contestants that were serious. Like, there were a lot of people that could have taken the place and were absolutely, like, good for the job. The biggest example was was Freeland, right? Chrystia Freeland. Chrystia Freeland would have made an amazing prime minister. I would have been so happy for her to be the one in charge. But of course, she had that tainting of, well, being there for Trudeau, so that didn't help. But, like, just the fact that we have these people that have the skills, that have the knowledge, and we try to groom these people to be future prime minister, this already shows a level of seriousness that doesn't exist in the Conservatives.
With his work ethic. I mean, there's lots about this guy that makes him the effective politician that he has been, both inside the party. And if you look at the absolute numbers of Canadians that voted Conservative in the last election, despite all the headwinds that he faced in that campaign, which were primarily the result of the Trump re-election and
like the headwinds, what are we talking about here? He was essentially going to be held in. Like, he was going to become fascistic leader of Canada. No one was going to oppose his ass. How can we say that it was hard for him? Like, he had the weakest fucking guy to fight against. I just don't know what we're talking about here.
The panic, the freak out that inculcated amongst Canadian voters, especially
like, you get how
voters.
Retarded this is. All he had
I
to
just
do
don't see
was to say Trump is bad, and he wouldn't do it. Like, this is such a retarded calculus to me. Your voters are going to vote Conservatives no matter what. You're not trying to convince your voters. You're not trying to convince Conservatives. Your Conservatives, you could rape them. They could still, like, they would find a way to the poll. But the people more in the middle that are on the sideline, that are unsure about whether they want to vote a Conservative or Liberal, these people, you saying Trump is a bad guy and he's trying to destroy our country and I'm going to fight, they need that. Why didn't he say that? Like, anybody with a brain could have. I just don't know.
See anyone else, Sean, credibly replacing him at this moment. And maybe, again, to go back to my point, who would want this job? I mean, isn't the reality, Sean, that there's a certain stasis here until the next election? And look, I'm not. I can't foretell the future better than any of our viewers or listeners, but I would think there's a relatively high certainty that if you're Mark Carney, you will want to have an election sometime while Donald Trump is still president.
Yes.
If everything lines up. So isn't the fact, and I'll throw it back to you now for the last word, Sean, isn't the reality just that, that election, the president's there until 2028. So that election, probably spring 2028, there's a lot of room here for Pierre Poilievre to settle into Stornoway, to ride this out, and politics is uncertainty. That's a sine qua non. Anything can happen. Everything does happen. So maybe the upshot of all this, Sean, is just more of the same. And this is a guy who can tough it out. Pierre Poilievre has shown that again and again. Thick skin. He can tough this out, and we're in a kind of stasis from now until the next election, which I forecast, again, will be before Donald Trump has left the Oval Office.
Yeah, I'll say a few things just to wrap up. First, one that aligns with you. Not only has Poilievre achieved pretty extraordinary numbers for the Conservatives, built inroads in with new and different types of voters. We saw this week that the party spent something like $100 million in the context of the last election, eclipsing what the Liberals spent.
And they're in a deficit.
Under Poilievre and the rest of his team, a fundraising machine with significant financial resources. The two risks, it seems to me, is one, that he doesn't face internal challengers per se, but that we continue to see conservative MPs, including MP Jamil Javani, push the boundaries further and further when it comes to freelancing. And
Well, the problem with that is how can he control his caucus? Like, Jamil Javani went out when it was Pride and called essentially gays degenerate. So, what are we talking about here? Like, he doesn't control his caucus. He hasn't even, like, normally, under an healthy party, you would get out and say, look, what Jamil says is over the line. We are reviewing if he's fit for this party, and we're going to hit him with the stick. Okay, well, you don't do that. You don't say that gays are degenerate, right? That's just not something that you can do. But he doesn't have any control. Like, what the fuck do you want him to do? Anyway.
and that Poilievre feels constrained or limited to kind of bring them in line. And the risk, of course, to a lot of parliamentary leaders in the past, Rudyard, is not someone coming and shooting the king so much as a king just diminished over time. And then just relatedly, the last thing I'll say
diminished.
is narratives are powerful in politics. So, my advice to Pierre Poilievre is take a bit of time this summer. As you say, he's in a marathon, not a sprint. That may mean that July or August or whatever, we hear and see a little bit less of him, but he needs to come back in the fall, energized, with a plan to build some momentum and kind of arrest this narrative that he can't win the next election, that he's under siege, that his own caucus members are themselves restless. If he doesn't solve for that soon, sometimes, as you know, Roger, political narratives can kind of take on a life of their own. And so that's why I think this summer is an important moment for him to kind of recharge and find those ways to differentiate from the government and breathe some life into his leadership and his caucus.
Yeah, and to the credit to him and the Conservative Party, they have instituted the Reform Act, so he can be removed by a vote of caucus at any time, according to the rules of the Act. So things are in play. Sean, we're going to say goodbye to our complimentary listeners and viewers for this first half of the roundtable. If you want to join Sean and me each and every week for the back half, exclusive to Hub subscribers, where we dig into more of the issues and ideas animating the week.
So, like, my core issue here is that we could have a real conservative party, right? We could have a conservative party that, let's just choose a new video. Oh, that's a fun one to listen.
Political party.
We're gonna listen to this. I want a vibe. But like, if you wanted to have a real conservative party, what you would do is you would have a leader. Like, this is not going to happen. The conservatives are too brain dead for this. But you would have a leader that would come out right now, and that leader would say, Prime Minister, I know that we disagree on a lot, but on trade, I am there with you. I will do what you ask me to do. I support you on trade. Go give hell to Donald Trump. Go fuck him up. And that would give so much, like, confidence into the conservative, because right now the conservative are denying reality and people see it. People feel like, people know that trade is being impacted. People are losing their job. It's affecting everybody. And they just essentially are saying that Carney is doing it for fun, which everyone with a brain knows it's not true. So, like, oh, okay, he needs me. So, like, what the... Why? Okay, I need to stop being surprised. They're retarded. But technically, come out, just say, yes, give him hell on that. And on the projects like pipeline, like anything that is resource extraction, your people love that. So instead of getting hit by essentially saying he's not doing enough, and the conservative being like, well, I have the choice between the guy who actually does it and the guy who just complains all the time, you can come out and say, all right, we disagree on a lot. I think you can go further than that, but you did a good thing there. That was a good choice. That was a good push. Like, you can give pluses where they happen, but he doesn't. He just takes hit all the time. I don't understand. I do. I need to stop saying I don't understand. They're retarded, but just think about the vibe here. The vibe would be so much better if we had a leader that does that. That gives points where there's points. That comes out and says, all right, that's a thing we disagree on a lot, but that's the thing where we unite and we fight together, and I'll be there, Mr. Prime Minister. Right? That would be awesome. And I feel like a lot of voters just need to hear that in order to go forward with the Conservatives. But they're not going to do it. And instead, they're going to do dumb shit like this.
The parties have success when it's clear what they are fighting for and who they are fighting for. But the growing narrative around the federal Conservatives lately is about who they are fighting with, and that's each other.
Future Premier of British Columbia, Carrie-Lynne Finley.
She's not being voted in. It's just
Way to go.
the Conservative.
Fresh off a big win against Liberal lobbyists from out east.
Yeah, it was just a
Okay, so
Conservative
that comment
primary.
from Pierre Poilievre is the latest flashpoint here. It's a clear shot at Corey Teneycke and others. Teneycke, of course, was Stephen Harper's former director of communications and has been Doug Ford's campaign manager in 3 straight Ontario election wins, and he was also a very loud critic of Poilievre's strategy in the last federal election. Most recently, Teneycke managed Caroline Elliott's campaign to lead the BC Conservatives. A race Elliott narrowly lost to Carrie-Lynne Finley, 51% to 49% on the final ballot. And today, Elliott released a video pushing back on Poilievre's attack.
Hi, Pierre. Caroline Elliott here. I voted Conservative my entire life. I voted for you in your own CPC leadership race. My family and friends donate to you at my encouragement. I've attended events and knocked on doors for you, spoken up for you on social media and in my columns that you've actually posted to your own social media. I was the only candidate to publicly endorse you ahead of your leadership review vote earlier this year.
Oh no.
So your MPs, and now you personally, celebrating my defeat in the BC Conservative leadership race is disappointing. The race is over, and it's time to unite, not divide.
Okay, that's just one of the things that this is unleashed today, but we're going to start there with the power panel. We've got Michelle Cadario, who's Deputy Chief of Staff to former Prime Minister Paul Martin. Peter MacKay is a former Conservative Cabinet Minister, and Shachi Kurl is the President of the Angus Reid Institute. 2 people from BC and a Conservative.
Oh, no.
Just my luck today. Peter, let's start with you about what we're seeing here. This was a narrow win for Carrie-Lynne Finley, so it's not like she has this overwhelming mandate, and this kind of has picked at the scabs of that race a little bit. What do you make of what we're seeing just on the BC front from the Pierre Poilievre and now Caroline Elliott?
This is so dumb.
Well, I think that last clip from Caroline Elliott says a lot because gracious in victory and even more so in defeat. And that's what's needed across all parties. I mean, let's be honest, this is not unique to any one party. Leadership battles tend to be vicious at times and personal, having been through a few of them. I think it was Ronald Reagan said, thou shalt not speak ill of fellow fill in the blank colleagues. But let's be honest, this is really, small potatoes. This is not really part of the larger narrative that most people are thinking about. A single mom trying to meet the bills and pay for medicine.
Okay, the fact that the guy trying to govern the country is essentially just memeing and shitting on his own people, that's small potatoes. Okay, Peter MacKay is like a cooked conservative, okay? That's how we're going to call them. They are cooked conservative. There is no brain, no actual path to logic, okay? The processor has been thoroughly cooked, okay? It overheated, it's gone. These people, I don't even know how they like drive a car. Like, what the fuck is this? It's small potatoes? Like, you don't think, Peter, that people will look at this and see a bunch of conservative essentially just throwing Molotov at each other's feet and say to themselves, do I want that stable government from Mark Carney, or I could go for the complete retard of the conservatives, which are currently doing a barbecue with their own feet? Like, you're cooked. You're cooked, McKay.
For medicine and food, they're not thinking about this. This is absolutely insider politics. That goes back
but now it's on the
probably a
news.
couple of other
Now it's an
leaderships.
issue.
And so
No?
I don't know that this merits really a lot of attention. We may talk about it here. If you listened to Pierre Poilievre's entire speech,
Like, the problem is that this guy would, in the same breath, insult, what's his fucking name? Oh my god, how did it flee my mind? You fucker. Stephen Guilbeault. Like, he'll say that he's a fucking tree hugger, that he can go, like, on another roof, go terrorize some other premier. Like, he will insult that guy, and in the same breath say that it's a big issue for the liberals because he doesn't agree. But now, we essentially have a guy that is antagonizing half of the conservatives in a province, which, let's not kid ourselves, like BC conservatives, before they self-immolate, did have some chance, right? They did have some time. They are the opposition to EB. So, what are we doing here? Like, this is not small potatoes, especially that now it's on the news. Now you need to address it.
speech, that was just sort of an off-the-cuff comment. He was
Off the
talking about
cuff.
much more substantive issues. He was talking about, in particular, the importance of getting behind the movement to keep Alberta in a strong and united and prosperous Canada. That was really the takeaway that I took from his speech, not this sort of clip off the cuff. But, you know, I get that it garners attention. I get that it...
I think we should just listen to that fucking thing and see how cooked he is. How can you say... I took from the speech that is, like, inherently divisive that we should be united in Canada. Are you fucking kidding me? What are we seeing here? We need to watch this thing.
That it revs up old feelings. I think he needs to, and everybody needs to keep their focus on the prize, and that is important issues like keeping the country together, keeping affordability front and center, seeing that the country gets a pipeline, that the prosperity that we need in our economy is where we keep our attention.
Okay. I'm not sure the members of your party agree with you, though, Peter. This has caused a lot.
They've disagreed with me before, Dave.
No, that's fair. That's fair. That's fair. But, you know, Michelle, all of this, whatever's happening, there is Ben Woodfinden, who is the communications director for Mr. Poilievre, posted on social media, I'm more depressed about the state of conservative politics in Canada right now than I think I've ever been. I won't deny it. I look at all sorts of conservative camps and factions right now, and I see intellectual poverty everywhere. Anthony Koch, who was Poilievre's spokesperson during his leadership and worked on Caroline Elliott's campaign, he's this big piece in the National Post today saying, somewhere along the line, a segment of the conservative movement stopped caring about victory and started treating politics like an ever-increasingly exclusive ideological club. It's juvenile and unserious, and is one of the biggest reasons conservatives lose elections they should be winning. Believe it or not, politics isn't about racking up likes and retweets. There is this fraying happening in the conservative movement since the election, where Mr. Poilievre's ability to keep things under control like he did before is gone. And people who work for him are now criticizing the very nature of the party he's leading in this moment. And the Elliott thing seems to have been the last straw for some people.
Well, I think, you know, he's clearly a man who's still smarting. He's smarting from the election loss, from a whole series of caucus members leaving his party. And yet another one abandoning ship this week to take the appointment to the Senate. And he just doesn't seem to be able to rise above it or to get over it. And I think that that very fact that he is still so narrow focused and not actually thinking about the bigger issues, not actually trying to position himself as someone who you can take seriously, who is trying to set a new policy agenda or to actually rise above things and show himself as a potential prime minister someday, that I think conservatives are responding to. Picking fights and calling people names, it's not winning him friends. He's a guy who has to build an alliance. He's a guy who has to actually build up people and coming together. As a liberal, I'm enjoying it. Don't get me wrong, but it's really odd behavior, and I just don't know if he has anybody around him who's actually telling him the truth. That he's just got to smarten up. And, if this kind of rumbling is coming in public, that it's 10 times worth behind the scenes. And so we wonder, are we counting the days of Pierre Poilievre's leadership?
Well, Shachi, that's what I wonder about, because it's not just people like Anthony Kosh and Bev Wolfenden. I mean, Brian Lilly, who is a conservative columnist, very well read by that party. He wrote a pretty scathing column this week saying, I don't think Pierre Poilievre's antics suggest he's serious about becoming prime minister. I mean, I know Peter's point that people are more worried about everyday things, but this is still sending out signals and messages to people about just what's happening in that party. I mean, how do you think it's playing?
I'm going to come to that in a second. David, I just want to take a moment personally to extend my sympathy and pay tribute to Eddie. And I'm thinking about Caroline today, his wife. They were such a lovely, sweet, supportive, wonderful couple and couple of friends to me. Eddie would bring me to the house, like literally pick you up and drive you home to make sure you ate dinner. I remember one time he insisted on driving me to the airport, and I was like, Eddie, you don't need to do this. And ended up, I think I can tell this story now, backing the car into a parking standard while we were trying to get out of the parking lot. And he was a lovely man. And I'm going to bring this back to what we're talking about, because he would be of the view that it's one thing for advisors and senior staff to get into the dirt of winning leadership races or attacking your opponents or doing the cheap and petty shots, but you save your leader. In this case, this is a leader who doesn't want to be saved. This is a leader who, on the day of the pipeline announcement, referred to people who were opposed to the BC tanker ban as a radical group of fake environmentalists. It actually, in fact, is a group of 2 in 5 British Columbians, many of whom would, in other circumstances, possibly be open to voting Conservative or had voted Conservative in the past. Now you look at this thing with Caroline Elliott. Now, I had said, not in nearly as nasty a way, but the hype around Corey Tenake's involvement in the campaign and it somehow being perceived, at least in Ottawa, in the early parts of that BC Conservative leadership campaign, like a coronation for Ms. Elliott. And I remember saying, he's not necessarily the magic gold dust in BC that he might be perceived to be in Ontario, but this is just so unnecessary for a leader whose negative ratings, whose unfavorable views are at 60%, while his favorable views are at 33% and trending down. This is so unnecessary and off topic and off message when you consider the fact that he's nowhere above 40% favorability with any single age or gender demographic. He doesn't even have 34 to 55-year-old men. So who's he got? And now we're going to start picking internecine internal battles among ourselves? Pierre, you do you, brah, but I'm not sure what the point is here, because it's not just that he's alienating people within the Conservative Party, and it's not just that he said it today. This is a sustained pattern of
he's alienating all Canadians,
being who he wants to be, saying what he wants to say, and seemingly not really caring about the fact that if he needs to bring the Conservatives across this magic line wherein you can form government, which is something the party has not done in the better part of 20 years now, more than 20 years. This is something that sorry, I said 20 years. I meant 15.
15.
But anyway, you got my point.
15.
Yeah, 2015. But the broader point being, the party's been in the cold for a while. But this is also a leader who doesn't care. I said at the beginning, post this past election last year, this is the beginning of the end. It's not a matter of.
So look, I think that there's a philosophy that truly cooked the brain of the conservative. So a bit of history here. Harper, his theory when he wanted to see which voters he wanted to get was to break this common knowledge that if you want to win an election, you need to win Quebec. So the common knowledge that has been said again and again is you won't win your majority without winning Quebec. Now, issue is that's like kind of not true because, well, Harper managed to get his majority once, right? But like when you go overboard with that, when you go and you not only cut down Quebec, but cut down part of the BC electorate, part of the Ontario electorate, all of Atlantic Canada. Like at that point, what the fuck are you doing? Who is there left to vote for you? Like the theory of we can win without Quebec, that's it. It's only Quebec that you're sacrificing at the altar, not the whole fucking country, bro. Like the only people that are left is Alberta, and even Alberta is like vibing with Carney right now because Carney is actually doing shit. For once, this narrative that the Liberals are evil and all they want is to like extract value from Alberta, that's breaking down because of how much Carney is actually affecting change, of how much Carney is doing things. So, like, you're not going to win by doing this. In any case, let's resume this.
I don't
or maybe
think
we
it's
can
going
go
to
to
happen
the
anytime soon, but at
to the
some
speech.
point, conservative universe is going to take a long look at this leader and say, is this the guy to take us into the next federal election? And I still think that over-under on it being him is not certain.
Well, Peter, and I'll give you the final word on this before we move on to the other topic. But, pulling back and just looking at where the Conservative Party is more broadly, I mean, when you were part of the effort to unite the parties back in the day, it was to sort of have a credible alternative to the Liberal dominance. But Mark Carney and the Trudeau-Carney era is going to last longer than the Chrétien-Martin era. If Mark Carney sticks around the full term. And here you have the federal leader with no real relationship with the Conservative Premier of Nova Scotia or the Conservative Premier of Ontario, and now weighing into a BC Conservative leadership situation where he's upset a supporter who got 49% of the vote. Like,
how do you do that?
Building that's further fracturing, it seems.
He's fracking it.
Yeah, there's no question the Liberal Party is very good at keeping its fights in the room. And, sometimes you'll see blood seeping out under the door because I know they have their vicious battles as well. And Mr. Carney has very quickly disassociated himself and moved away entirely from Justin Trudeau and the government that he was part of for 5 years. But look, to answer your question, it's never going to be helpful.
He wasn't part of the government, right? He was an advisor sometime. But truly, he was way the fuck out of the government while Trudeau was there.
And to Chachi's point,
conservative
you're not going to be able to
again.
Get over that line when you're fighting a rear guard and fighting with each other. And, I recall, in referencing Eddie Goldenberg, his boss used to say, Jean Chrétien used to say, when you throw dirt, you lose ground. And I think that's a good golden rule in some ways. For everybody, for all parties, and having been around the game a while, I've seen a lot, seen the heat of the moment, seen what happens when you're speaking in front of a partisan crowd, which this certainly was at the Calgary Stampede, and you get caught up in the moment. But it takes discipline, it takes a lot of effort, but a unified Conservative Party, I maintain now, and I maintained all those years ago, is the only way. It's the only way, because even at the high water mark, Conservatives are going to get low 40%. That's just not possible when you're fighting with your provincial cousins, when you're taking shots at each other. And So it's it's a cautionary tone for everybody, a cautionary note, I should say.
Yeah, it's very different than a year and a half ago. Right now, if you look at the polling for preferred prime minister, the gap between Pierre Poilievre and Maxime Bernier is smaller than the gap between Pierre Poilievre and Mark Carney, right?
That's bad.
And,
Maxime Bernier is the
days like this
giga-fascist.
are challenging on that front.
Okay, I'm kind of in a bad position to select something else right now. Get fucked. We're gonna need to find a speech for that. Maybe I should hide. Hide! Oh, there's someone that's going to pop out of there. I don't want to kill his ass. Oh my. Okay, let's go see. Poilievre. Stampede.
We stand on guard for.
Okay. I feel like this is going to be a fucking joke. I love our anthem, but when conservatives do it, it feels like a meme. What's going on? Ah, okay. Oh my god, will they zoom out? It looks like there's like 4 people in. Oh no. Have they zoomed out?
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much, Calgary. It's great to be home.
Merci beaucoup. Oh no.
Thank you to my great friend of a quarter century, Shub Majumdar, whose wonderful introduction I just interrupted. I think he had more to say. And Shub, I wrote you a much longer introduction for you to read. But I'll call you tonight and you can give it to me then. Thank you very much to Shub
what
for
the
his
fuck
incredible
was
work
that?
as my former national security advisor. Now
Does
our
it-
shadow minister of Canada, U.S.
Wait, did he get... Wait. I misunderstood that for sure. Did he just say, I wrote you a bigger introduction for you to read? We need to get that again. It sounds so bad.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much, Calgary. It's great to be home. And thank you to my great friend of a quarter century, Shub Majumdar, whose wonderful introduction I just interrupted. I think he had more to say. And Shub, I wrote you a much longer introduction for you to read. But I'll call you tonight and you can give it to me then.
Okay.
Thank you very much to Shub for his incredible work as my former national security advisor. Now our shadow minister of Canada, U.S. relations.
Oh, man.
We will fight for our tariff-free trade with our American friends. Member of Parliament for Calgary Heritage. And, of course, Member of Parliament for my mother, who is his boss, and he never forgets it. She's the mayor of Shaughnessy. I want to thank so many of the...
She's the mayor? Wait. That's kind of weird. Doesn't that sound like, like Mama... Mama gave you a job? Oh, wait. I want to lit some people up. Alright.
The special guests we have here today, our wonderful
Wait, we're gonna have to research this. Let's wait until I die. God damn! I'm genociding these folks. Come to me, bitch. Boo boo! Boo boo! I'm invincible. Okay. Pierre Poilievre, mother. Okay, I guess Marlene Poilievre is the one that we're talking about. Can we check this? Okay. Okay, no, she's not mayor. This is
Premier Parliament for Calgary Heritage, and of course, Member of Parliament for my mother, who is his boss, and he never forgets it. She's the mayor of Shaughnessy. I want to thank so many of the special guests we have here today. Our wonderful
so that's like
Premier,
a meme,
Premier
I
Smith,
guess?
is in the room.
Oh, yeah.
The future Premier of British Columbia, Carrie Lynn Finlay. Way to go. Fresh off a big win against Liberal lobbyists from out east. We've got our former leaders, Ronna Ambrose and Candice Bergen are both here. Give them a round of applause.
Bruh.
And of course, we have too many Conservative MPs to name them all, but they are Canada's affordability team. 3 priorities: affordability, 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 bringing your costs down. Give it up for all our Conservative
Nice
MPs.
move.
Merci beaucoup. What I have to say, it is great to be home here in Alberta, where when you say you're going green, it means you just bought a John Deere tractor.
Oh no, we have the cooked Conservative and Pepper Poilievre. Oh no. Oh, he's so cooked. Oh no, he's going to just... Like, it feels like... You know in the US how sometimes like a politician will just fucking giga change when they're talking about to a black audience? That feels like what I'm feeling right now. That's oh he's like, oh, we're gonna pollute, oh, like what the fuck?
In fact, they tell us that the Liberals have actually decided to show up this year at the Calgary Stampede. There was one Liberal MP who landed at the airport, rented his Mercedes, and decided to drive out to the countryside, pulled into a farm, and went up to a rancher and said, if I can guess the size of your herd, will you give me one of your calves? I said, well, why don't we do that? And so the MP pulled out his phone, looked at some satellite information, did some calculations, and said, farmer, you have 1,432 cows. And the farmer said, well, a deal's a deal. You got it right. You can take one of my calves. So the politician picked up one of the animals, put it in his Mercedes, and just as he was about to pull away, the farmer stopped him and said, if I can guess your political affiliation, will you give me back my animal? And the politician said, sure. He said, okay, you're a Liberal. He said, geez, how did you know? And he said, well, you showed up uninvited. You expected to be paid to give me information I already had. You don't know a thing about farming because that's actually a herd of sheep. Now give me back my dog.
Like, I don't know. I feel like him not saying that it's a joke makes it very cringy. Especially that, like, that guy lives in Ottawa for like forever. It's like, what is he? He's pretending right now, right? He's pandering. He's that white politician that starts speaking fucking Ebonics when he gets to Detroit. Like, what the fuck are we? What the fuck are we doing? Cooked
There's
Conservatives.
no better time to be in Calgary than for the greatest outdoor show on earth. It's great to be back at the Stampede. This city raised me. I used to play in Fish Creek Park. I used to run my dog there. I delivered the Calgary Sun. Rick Bell was a writer way back then, as he is now.
Nice meme.
I got actually my minimum wage job over at the Calgary Stampede, clearing the trash. You learn a lot doing those types of things. In fact, we used to come here to Heritage Park as school kids and dress up like it was 1910. And we would go and see all those old buildings and learn about our history, learn about how this province was built by workers, families, entrepreneurs, farmers, ranchers, builders, risk takers, people pulling together. That's the spirit of the Stampede, the spirit of Alberta and of Canada. Our values of family, personal responsibility, neighbors helping neighbors, hard work, and freedom. Around this place, if you take a look around, what you'll see are these incredible old buildings reconstructed. They are almost like monuments to the prairie families that fought through the Depression and the Dust Bowl to give us this inheritance. It almost makes you ask why they bothered to come at all. What was the decision that took them over an entire ocean and across a vast land to clear rocks and weeds on a cold, harsh, nationwide landscape? But that was the price they paid for a very simple promise. Promise was this: you do the backbreaking work, you sacrifice, and you get to have a family, and they get to have a great life. You can worship God in your own way, raise your kids in peace, and work so that each tomorrow finds you further than today. They fled European aristocracies that controlled the land, money, and rules, and came here to live out their faith, family, and freedom. They knew their hard work would earn them opportunity and ownership. The deal was simple: plant, grow, harvest. And that is the deal that we're supposed to have today. That you're supposed to plant the crops through your hard work by taking out a mortgage to launch a business, working overtime, studying hard, saving. And then the harvest, you get to own a house, pay off your mortgage, raise your kids with your values, good schools, good food.
Like, I get the pandering that he's using, but this is a very limited dream, right? Because when you limit the dream to essentially what he's saying is essentially you need to have a family, you need to own a home. Like, you're undercutting a lot of people there. A lot of people just don't want to have kids. A lot of people's idea of the dream is very different. Like, I feel like there's ways that he could word this and have a better story. Because like, no matter how you cut it, the story of the prairies can be very inspiring. Well, it can be very bad as well if you go with what happened with the First Nations. But like, overall, you can make a very good story out of that. So I don't see why you would focus only on that. I don't know. To me, it seems weak.
A good future. But right now, only half of that deal remains in place. You see, the people are doing their part. They're doing the back-breaking, grueling work that they were supposed to do. But when the harvest comes, there's a group of aristocrats come along and scoop it up. The fruits of their labor go to a small group of insiders, the kinds of aristocrats that our ancestors left behind on the other side of the pond. A small, privileged group.
Like, also, the leaving the aristocrat, that's revisionism. Like, there was no leaving of aristocrat there, right? There's, like, Canada was overall ruled by its own people with the guardrails of the British, and everyone respected that. Like, I don't know how he can go for that, the nationalist angle, and undermine the biggest heritage that we have as a political system, which is the Brits governing us a little bit, making sure that we don't fuck it up, and giving us, like, the institutions that permits us to have, like, this great country. Like, this is just revisionism. I don't know. Like, look, it could be worse. It could be worse right now. He's only undermined half the people in BC in this speech, half the conservatives in BC. Sorry, I need to be precise. But if we remove that, indeed, it is a very unifying thing. If you want to have kids, and if you believe that the system doesn't work for you right now. So, yeah, I guess it is unifying, and it... Like, his whole speech, fuck, it's so retarded. It's so cooked. Is also how can Peter McKay think that this is unifying? His whole speech is about how the liberals are stealing everything from you, and they don't know what the fuck your struggle is. And we're supposed to say that that's like unifying? Let's see.
Group of liberal power brokers and sleazy lobbyists. They get rich, making others poor. Taking without making.
How?
Ultimately, they get handouts, bailouts, and carve-outs.
How?
And you get debt, taxes, and inflation. After they price you out of groceries, gas, and housing, they give you a little back of what they took and expect you to be grateful. They take the credit, you get the cost. They block opportunity, tax hard work, inflate costs, ruin money, make people helpless, and then grant special exemptions and privileges to their insider group. As 2.2 million Canadians line up at food banks, a record-smashing number, Mark Carney bails out his condo donor developers in Vancouver.
Well, that's a lie.
And
It's
nibbles
not
on
a bailout.
$200,000 of in-flight catering on his private jet. More costs.
Oh my, he has a private
more
jet.
Taxes,
Oh
more
no.
Debt. Mark Carney is just
Private
another
jet
liberal.
bad.
Liberals and the media
Grug.
expect you to judge Mr. Carney, not on his results, but on his many promises and announcements. But it's time to judge the results themselves. It's time to ask, aside from all the illusions, all of the words, all the change in style and image, what's really
All the
changed?
memes.
He promised that he would be judged by the price of groceries. They're rising faster than any other country in the G7.
Is that
Promised
true?
to spend less right before doubling the deficit. Outside of COVID, we now have the biggest deficit in Canadian history and the highest spending as a share of GDP since 1996. He promised that we'd have less bureaucracy right before he added 13 new agencies. He promised more growth right before giving us the only recession in the G7. He promised to handle Trump and negotiate a win. But he's gone from elbows up to sucking up.
Okay. But you've been sucking up from the start. Like, we can go in reverse order here. You've been sucking up from the start. Everything that you're saying, like, oh my god, he's booming the deficit. Okay, would you prefer us not investing, and instead of having a technical deficit, like where we are essentially flat right now, not growing, but we will grow in the future, as the bank said, to going to, we are just going straight down in hell? Like, you recognize, Poilievre, this is what your policy would do, right, Pepper Poilievre? You're so cooked that you believe that cutting all of that shit out would absolutely make it better. Are you fucking retarded? Like, the reason why we're in a recession, well, no, the reason why we're in a technical recession where we're flat is because we spent. If we didn't spend, we would be in a big ass recession. So what are we saying here? What's the solution here? I don't know. I wonder if the cooked conservatives will have any good policies other than vaguely gesturing about how life is hard. Because right now that's all that they have. And sadly, I'm here to inform everyone watching that life is hard for everyone. Life is hard for me. Life will be hard for you. Life is always hard. That's how life has always been. And life will... unless there's like some big update to how humans thinks, it will always be hard. So, what the fuck are we saying here? What the fuck have we achieved? Like, you've said nothing of value here.
And Canadians are paying up as American tariffs on Canadian goods have more than doubled and broadened to more goods. A year after he was elected, on the illusion that he would reverse everything he had said and everything his party had done in the prior 10 years, what has really changed in your life?
No.
Your grocery prices, your mortgage payments, your debt, have they dropped? Is crime going down in your community? What we've...
I don't know. Has my debt dropped? My dad has fucking dropped, okay?
Is a reversal of rhetoric. Not
my dad
a
is
reversal
definitely
of
down.
Results. Did you see Mark Carney's confession the other day? He had a big confession. He says
go ahead.
that Liberals will not meet their emissions reduction targets. And somewhere,
are you sad about
we're all
it?
shedding a tear for Stephen Guilbeault.
Okay, that one is good. Oh, no.
At least
oh, no.
some people bring happiness wherever they go. Some people bring happiness whenever they go.
Okay, nice meme, nice meme. That's a good joke. Well, let's give it to the man. Let's give it to the man. That was a nice meme.
Yeah, Mr. Carney was honest that he won't be able to reduce the emissions the way he planned, or the way he said he would. So let's be honest about some other things. He pretends that he inherited this anti-oil and gas agenda from someone else. But for a decade, he was the worldwide CEO of the anti-oil and gas agenda. He built his entire persona on net zero. In fact, he claimed that fossil fuel caused climate change was a, quote, existential crisis. In plain English, that means, he said, that if we kept using oil and gas, the world would come to an end. He was the UN's special climate envoy, publishing a report calling for us to keep 2/3 of our oil and gas in the ground. As Trudeau's economic advisor, he advised bigger and broader carbon taxes. He founded a banking alliance that was dedicated to starving our industry of financing. As Brookfield's CEO, his job was to use his political influence as a corporate power broker to get government handouts for heat pumps and so-called green energy that killed...
Wait a second. What's bad with heat pumps? Wait, where are we right now? Heat pumps are bad? You know, I like to have AC and it doesn't cost me essentially anything in electricity. I like having my house cool and having my house hot in the winter for less money. You know, that's a thing that personally, you know, maybe the Cooked Conservative and Pepper Poilievre are not. They like to be cold in the winter and they like to be warm in the summer, but I just disagree.
Killed jobs and drove up the cost of living for the people. Now he's claimed...
Like this is the ridiculous part, right? Like when we say kill jobs, all of these measures don't kill jobs, they create jobs. When you push for people to have these heat pumps, you're creating a demand that maybe people didn't have the money for before. So even if people wanted the heat pumps, they couldn't afford it. So now that you put the money behind it, the installers of the heat pump can now have a job. The people that want the heat pump can now have the heat pump. They are paying less on electricity, thus they can pay more on general consumption. And everybody benefits from that. So where's the negative here? But no, we're just going to vibe it with Pepper Poilievre.
He's changed his mind. Look, there's lots of flip-flops in politics, right? People changing their minds on various things.
Yeah,
but
you changing about how you want to change.
Going in a matter of 4 years, from claiming that oil and gas is going to end the world to claiming that you don't even have to meet your emissions targets at all. It raises the question of whether he believed any of it in the first place, or whether the agenda was something else. Of course it was something else. They spent $200 billion on this climate agenda over the last 10 years. And now we want our money back. $200 billion
what are we saying?
out
Is
the door.
It like
Whoops.
the Jews or
well,
something?
It wasn't really a good policy after all. We know that the policy was never really about the climate. It was always about driving up costs for the working class to concentrate the benefits for the privileged few.
Like, how does that make any sense? Why would you want to drive up the cost for the middle class when everybody lost? Like, everybody loses in this scenario. Like, what's the point? So we're saying that, like, the liberals are ontologically evil? They're just, like, evil because they're evil and there's no way to change it? Like, what the fuck's the point of this? What? I don't get it. I don't get it. What's his argument? Wait a second, I'm capturing this alone. Let's go. Oh shit, I'm cooking!
And if he's really changed his mind, why is his government still blocking 500 projects? Why is it that he plans to raise the industrial carbon tax by 500%? Why hasn't he used the unprecedented powers in C5 to approve a single project? Why won't he get rid of C69?
Well, because they're in review.
And why won't he get rid of the tanker ban? Why is he allowing American... Get rid of the tanker ban now!
Well, it wouldn't change anything. There's no project to take advantage of this.
Blocking Alberta oil from our Pacific waters while allowing American tankers to use those same waters, my friends, is an anti-Alberta and an anti-Canadian policy.
Didn't Peter MacKay talk about, like, Canadian unity?
But don't worry, there will be another crisis. He will sound the alarm. And once again, he will have exactly the same solution as for the last crisis. More government control, more taxes, more crony capitalism, and more carve-outs, bailouts, and handouts for the liberal insiders.
What does this even mean?
And then they claim to be a solution to that problem. For example, they drive up our food costs with taxes and red tape, then create new government programs to supposedly to subsidize affordable food. They drive up
Wait, what the fuck? How does that make sense? So they drive cost up by adding taxes. If you add taxes on a thing, it should most likely reduce the inflation on said things. It could reduce it, like, very little, but it should reduce it. So how is taxing a thing bad for your inflation of said thing? So that's already cooked. And then saying that they give out money, rebates and stuff. Well, if things cost too much... Like, first of all, if you want to insult a thing about inflation, you would insult that. But if something costs too much, you believe it costs too much for the poorer people in society, you would want the poorer people in society to be able to have access to those rebates. Because if they don't, well, they're not going to consume the thing that maybe they needed to consume. Or they're going to be in a fucked situation. So what are we talking about here? Like, this doesn't make sense internally. Like, what the fuck?
Of housing costs with bureaucracy and taxes on home building. And then they create a brand new housing agency that's supposed to subsidize home building affordability. They impose carbon taxes on steel makers and then bring in subsidies for steel makers. As the great Ronald Reagan says, if a liberal sees something that moves, he taxes it. If it keeps moving, he regulates it. When it stops moving, he subsidizes it. Which raises the question, why
Sounds
not
like a base
just
thing to do.
none of the above and get out of the way and let things move?
Well, because it won't move by itself, right?
Why not let the builder build?
So, if we're TLDRing this, we should not do anything. If you're too poor to afford your groceries, starve. If you have a kid and, like, the Canadian Child Benefit is helping you a lot, starve. And that's the policy? Because or else ... inflation? I don't know. If you ask most people if they prefer living in a world with slightly higher inflation or not having that $600 a month, I think most people would choose the inflation. Most people would look at the inflation and be, yeah, I don't give a fuck about it.
The worker work, the investor invest, the farmer farm, the trucker truck, the manufacturer manufacture. The answer is, because then there would be no role for the liberal politician. No power, no control, no permit to authorize, no check to hand out. If you could just launch a business, produce resources, grow food, build homes, then the Prime Minister and his club of insiders would be irrelevant within their castle walls. And that brings us to why we are conservatives. We do not want to run people's lives. In fact, if we were founding a new political party, and we're not, but if we were, it would be called the Mind Your Own Damn Business Party, wouldn't it? We want to fight to give power back to the common people, for the many, not the few, to put money back in people's pockets, control in their hands, and hope in their lives, to get the government out of the way, off the backs and by the sides of those who work hard, pay their taxes, and play by the rules. We have three main priorities: affordability, affordability, and affordability. The government is the single biggest and fastest growing cost in people's lives. People spend more on taxes than on food, clothing, and shelter combined. And that does not include the indirect inflation tax. We are fighting government waste and overspending. We're fighting to cut bureaucracy, consultants, and corporate welfare, to end the handouts to fake and phony refugees, to cut foreign aid, because it's time we took care of our own people right here in this country.
What the fuck?
We're fighting to...
Okay. First of all, the government being the biggest thing in people's life, that's already retarded. If you're poor, the government is the inverse of the biggest thing in your life, is the biggest revenue in your life. You don't pay taxes. Like, if you make under 50K, you're probably, like, not paying any substantial taxes. Or you're, like, at worst, you're at net zero. If we calculate everything you get in and everything you get out. So, like, what the fuck are we... Well, 50K is probably too high. 30K. So, like, what the fuck are we talking about here? So... Okay, maybe if you're rich, is Poilievre just saying, okay, I am the man for the elite. Let's cut taxes for the rich, and let's make sure that our people starve. Because food has become unaffordable because poor people can afford it. Based. Like, what are we saying here? And blaming, I'm sorry, but foreign aid? And phony migrants, ... Phony refugee, I'm sorry. Like, what are we talking here? Refugees are refugees. Like, what's bad with refugees? If you come from Ukraine, your country has been fucking nuked to the ground, and you're just trying to make your life in our great society. What's bad with that? Why is that bad? Like, I need an explanation. So... Like, should we refuse them all? Like, these people contribute to the economy. It's not a loss to have these people. So, do we just cry about refugees and not have them? I'm confused. I need to stop being confused. Like, these people are just... I don't know. I feel that the more I'm listening to different conservatives, I feel like if there was anyone ontologically evil, it would be them. Like, how can you say phony refugees to your fucking rabid fan base of racist and assume that everything's going to be fine? We're just going to say that the people that are coming in to try to have a better life, they're lying about it, and it's all going to be fine. Like, really? Is that the plan? What the fuck are we doing here?
To end the $90 billion Alto rail catastrophe.
What's bad with it? Like, the only bad thing with Alto is that it won't be throughout Canada, okay? I want Alto to be an ocean-to-ocean fucking thing. Like, why are we saying, oh my god, rails connecting province? I mean, that's how we founded our country, but how is that bad? I need an explanation. Why is making things that prop up the economy bad for us?
To send the money of Alberta taxpayers for a train that, if it ever gets built at all 15 years from now, 95% of Canadians will not even use, And a joint multi-partisan study showed we'll not take a single car off any highway. We'll just take people out of money-making airplanes and put them into money-losing trains. We'd rather put that money in your pocket. With savings that we get from canceling these wasteful projects, we will use to bring down debt, taxes, and inflation.
Are you not making money off the train? Like, why is it money wasting because it's a train? Is it because it pollutes less? Is it because it's faster? Is it because it's more convenient? What part of it makes it bad? Can I shoot grenades? No. Okay, cool.
So Canadians can afford a great life. We'll end the GST on used vehicles. We'll fight to cancel all gas taxes for the rest of the year. And we will end the
we need to stop removing the tax from everything. It's getting boring.
So that we can grow more of our energy production. We want to cut taxes on food production, home building, energy, investment, and work to bring down costs and bring growth up. We will do this at the same time as we unblock our resources, not just because we want to generate the wealth, we want to boost the purchasing power of our dollar. We will get out of the way by scrapping C-69, ending the tanker ban. We will grant 6-month permits to build LNG plants, mines, ports, roads, rail, transmission, and other major paycheck-generating projects.
You're already against
we'll get
rail,
out of the way
so...
and permit our friends in Newfoundland and Labrador to double their oil production.
Are we against that, or no?
And we'll build up a strategic reserve of the 10 NATO-defined strategic minerals that you need to fight a war. We know our American friends need these things.
Oh no. Mark Carney is already doing that. Mark Carney has... What did he say in that meeting, in that interview? I think it's $80 billion secured for, like, pre-orders on these minerals. So Mark Carney is already... It's not even he's like preparing it. He's essentially 99% done. So what are we talking about here? Oh my god, his policies are like, okay, the liberals have already done it. But who gives a fuck? I'll signal on it.
We, for example, have the only 2 cobalt refineries in all of North America. You can't make an F-35 without cobalt. The Americans need our resources. But we want something in return. We're going to build up these massive strategic reserves and say to our American friends, we'll make you a deal. You can have preferred access to buy those resources if ever you need them at market prices. But in order to make you that promise, we want something in return. We want tariff-free trade across North America.
And what would Donald Trump say? Donald Trump would say, weak Poilievre, weakest conservative ever. I raped his wife. I raped her. I raped her like never before. I went to him. I told him, you're gonna be the cuck. You're gonna be in the chair. I took the resources. I annexed Alberta. I annexed it. And no one thought it was possible, but I did it. I annexed Alberta. I did it. I was the first one. No one thought it was possible. Like, that's what's going to happen. You think that minerals would be the thing that Trump cares about. He put, like, 3 trillion% tariff on China, which is his only source of these minerals right now. At the same time, putting tariffs on Canada, which could be the alternative to those minerals. So, like, this guy is cooked. Like, his theory has already been put on the table. It's already been refused by the Americans. So you're essentially saying, I'm going to do something on trade that has already been done and that has already failed. GG, bro. GG. I don't know how you can fuck it up that bad.
North America. We will unlock free enterprise and unleash the potential of our people, resources, and geography. And doing so, we should be able to make our country the richest nation in the history of the world. We will build an economy, but not based on bailouts, carve-outs, and handouts,
Well,
but
for that
based
we
on
would need
low
immigration,
taxes,
but
fast permits, sound money, and free enterprise competition. Business will get ahead by having the best product, not the best lobbyists, by competing for workers with better wages and customers with better prices, and we will unleash the power of free and voluntary exchange of work for wages, product for payment, and investment for interest. The federal government will once again actually do its real job. You know, we have something called the British North American Act. It was a who does what manual for the country. Very simple. These are the things the feds do, these are the things the provinces do, and everyone will get along. The federal government has been doing a terrible job at the things that are actually its responsibility. Borders, military, immigration, the criminal code, and yet having the audacity to get into the business of those things that are
all things that are doing well right now and that Mark Carney is seeking to evolve and to improve on. And when I say seeking, I'm lying here. Has already made great leaps in trying to make it work better. So what the fuck are we talking about?
that are not its job, invading provincial jurisdiction. We're going to
Like?
reverse that abuse.
Like which? Like what? What provincial jurisdiction?
Our government will do a few
Source?
things well rather than a lot of things poorly. We will reform the criminal code to scrap liberal bail. We will ensure that repeat violent offenders have jail without any possibility of parole, probation, house arrest, or early release. It will be jail, not bail.
Well, but the Liberals are already passing reverse onus. What the fuck are we talking about? How is he essentially describing what was already done and just presenting himself as a victor?
And we will actually toughen up our borders to keep criminals, terrorists, and gangsters out. We will deport
From the US?
Bishnoi gangsters who've been harassing our people and extorting our businesses.
Yeah, I didn't know that the US had so much gangster coming in through
And
the
we
border.
will stand on the side of law-abiding people by reversing the liberal gun grab once and for all.
Oh, the gun grab.
We will ensure that military spend.
I mean, what the fuck am I supposed to do here? They are coming. They are raping by the millions. It's the Michigan rape gang. Like, what are we talking about here? Is it like the Detroit gangster are crossing over in Windsor? Bro, he's cooked.
Spending goes
Cooked
to enhance
conservatives.
capabilities to protect our country and support our
water.
troops. It will enhance war fighting. It will not fund bureaucracy or defense lobbyists. And we will reinstill a warrior culture, not a woke culture.
How can you copy the US so much?
We will
Holy.
unite our people and our country around our common
Warrior
values,
culture?
common
What do we
history,
mean?
common bonds, and common sense. We will fight for the country. We will fight for Canada, including in the upcoming referendum, to win back Albertans through hope, not by wagging our fingers or lecturing them, nor by threatening. We will be
Let's see.
respectful to people on both sides of this debate. There are legitimate points of view to go around, and while I have been very clear that I will always stand for a united Canada, we will always be
will you?
willing to listen to the views and address the legitimate concerns of people who are involved in this debate. We want to ensure
Of the
that when this is all over,
insurrectionists.
we will
Okay.
once again be fully united as citizens of a common land dedicated to a common purpose of restoring the promise of this country. And as we do, let us
Shit, it's
reflect upon the wonderful inheritance that we have. They say if you stand in the prairie field and listen to the wind whistle, you can hear the voices of our ancestors. And you can use your imagination as to what they're saying.
That's schizophrenia. Okay? Okay. Pepper Poilievre, we need to talk. You need to seek some medication right the fuck now. The antipsychosis medication are needed, okay? Pepper Poilievre, what the fuck was that?
What I hear when I listen to those voices is that making Canada was hard, so we should never give up. Let us remember the Albertans who sacrificed for our inheritance, the people who through hardship and heroism never gave up, the brilliant engineers and roughnecks who extracted the miracle molecules out of the muddy bitumen to power our lives. They never gave up, so we never give up. The traders who followed the winding rivers down uncharted paths to find the lonely forts that would become our future cities, they never gave up, so we never give up. The pioneers whose callous hands plucked the weeds and moved the rocks to turn raw dirt into fields of golden grains never gave up, so we should never give up. The prairie mothers who fought starvation so their babies would survive the Dust Bowl and the Depression, they never gave up, so we never give up. The Cree code talkers from here in Alberta who used their unique language to deceive the Nazi interceptions to save countless Canadian lives, they never gave up, so we should never give up. The veterans who died on foreign soil for this country, they never gave up, so we should never give up.
Okay, the never give up part is kind of
redundant. The country for which they died is the country for which we must live, my friends. Let us be proud of our great Western traditions. Let's celebrate our people, our province, and our country. God bless Canada. Merci beaucoup. Thank you.
I'm waiting the day that he'll fuck it up and say God bless America. Oh no. That's going to be a bad day. Alright. Let's make sure that it ends. Maybe we'll have some memes. Oh yeah, let's cut the part where your great friend is speaking.
Leader of Canada's Conservatives, leader of His Majesty's official opposition, and the next Prime Minister of Canada, Pierre Poilievre.
Yeah, His Majesty's opposition. But fuck the aristocracy.
Thank you, everybody. We're now at the conclusion of our program. I'm going to invite folks to line up to your right on this side for a photo line. The leader's going to be available to greet you as you make your way to the stage. The 4 people in the audience. And I wanted to let you know that the buffet is open. Please go and get some food.
That's why we're here. The buffet. Pepper Poilievre and the cooked conservative. That was a fun one. Okay, that was a fun watch. So, what do you think? Do you think it's it makes you want to vote against independence in Alberta, right? It really wants to make you... No, of course not. Of course not. Charging people saying you're getting fucked by Ottawa like 1,500 times, but at the end being like, we need to fight for this country, fight like hell. Like, this doesn't... No one looks at this and is like, oh yeah, I'm inspired right now. I truly want to stay in this country. No one ever said that. What the fuck are we looking at?